Welcome, students. Our topic of discussion today is student and consumer loans vis-a-vis the role of planned borrowing. Last week, we discussed about credit cards and other sources of borrowing or consumer loans. So we are moving on today to examine the student and consumer loans. The learning objective includes one to understand the various consumer loans, after which we'll try to calculate the cost of a consumer loan and we'll pick an appropriate source for a plan, whether student or consumer loan. Then how to control your debt is also among what we intend to learn today. And lastly, we'll try to understand the alternative for financing your college education. Introduction. Consumer loans, like we generally loan, they are like we generally know, they are generally contracts that detail how much you are borrowing and when you are going to pay it back. Consumer loans are different from other open credits like maybe the credit card or whatever, because they are more formal, they are more detailed. It states out everything about the contract. It's like a contract form. So everything about the money you want to borrow, how you're going to borrow, the duration for which you are going to borrow, even to the extent of how much you are going to pay as interest. All right. So all this will be well detailed when it comes to consumer loans. They are formal contracts and they are more detailed. They are more detailed than the other sources of loans that we've had before, credits that we've discussed before. They are used for bigger purchases in most instances, and the debt and borrowing can get out of control if one is not careful. So you really have to be careful. You really have to be serious or take this seriously if you want to go into loan, any kind of loan, whether consumer or student loan. There are different choices when it comes to consumer loans. You have different options. The first option is the single payment or the installment. So you have to decide whether you want to pay it back at once or installmentally. Another choice or option is whether to go for the secured or the unsecured kind of loan. And we have the variable rate versus the fixed rate kind of loan as well. And lastly, we have the short term versus long term. So the first option is for you to decide whether you want to go for the single payment or the balloon loan or the installmental loan. For the single payments, it's being paid back. You pay the loan back in a single lump sum, all right, with the interest at the time of maturity. Once it's time, say for example, you took a loan and you expect that in the next 6 months you're going to pay it back, a loan of maybe 5,000 US dollars, for example. So by the time it's 6 months, you are expected to pay the whole 5,000 US dollars, including the interest. Okay, so this is a single payment or balloon loan. They generally have a relatively short duration of maturity, all right, or due date. So this maturity or due date is also usually stated in the contract. So everything, every term and conditions for the loan will be stated in the contract. And most times they are used as bridge or interim loan. They are normally short-term loan. At times, maybe you just quickly need the money to do something, and you know that okay, by the end of a few months, you will be able to repay back the money. The other option is the installment loan. Here you have to pay the principal as well as the interest at an interval. So you have maybe you pay the money over time instrumentally, and you also pay the interest. And of course, with this instrumental loan, there is what is known as an amortization, and this is where you pay with each payment that is being made. The interest portion covered is going to quite decrease because you will be paying that, and then the principal covered will increase. Installment loan are very common and are used to finance maybe huge, they are used to finance huge properties that you want to acquire or something like that. For example, maybe cars, other appliances, and maybe other big ticket items. Another decision, which is the second one, apart from deciding whether you want to go for the single payment loan or the instrumental loan, is the security of the loan. Do you want to go for a secured loan or an unsecured loan? Secured loan are guaranteed by an asset, which typically lowers the rate of the loan. For example, you have to provide something as collateral, right? It could be property, it could be anything, depending on the terms and conditions of the contract. Or you want to go for an unsecured loan, which are not guaranteed by any asset or collateral. So all these can be, it's another thing that you have to look into before you go for your loan acquisition. If you can't meet the loan payment, then the item that you used for collateral in the case of the secured loan will have to be sold. All right, it will have to be sold and used to cover the amount that is being owed. But even if after selling the item, the cost does not cover the old loan, then you'll still be indebted to your creditor, be it bank or any other financial institution that you are owing. All right, so that's another thing you should note about secured loan or unsecured loan. The third decision is to decide whether you want a variable rate versus fixed rate loan. Do you want to go for loans where the rate is fixed or where the rate varies? Fixed rate interest loan stays fixed for the entire duration of the loan, whether a year, whether it's 10 years. It's not tied to the market interest rate. Whether there are fluctuations in the market interest rate or not, the rate that has been fixed for you to pay on the loan will apply. The variable or adjustable interest loan will vary based on the market interest rate. So as the market interest rate fluctuates, then there will also be fluctuations in the rates of interest which you are going to pay on the loan. So the interest rate that banks charge to their most creditworthy or prime customer is what is known as the prime rate. As you know that bank also have different kind of customers and they know their credit worthiness. So this prime rate is just like a kind of concession for the customers that are prime or those that are credit worthy. We also have the convertible loan, which are variable rate loan that can be converted to a fixed rate loan. So this is the third decision, apart from deciding whether you want to go for a single payment or balloon, or whether you want to go for a secured or unsecured kind of loan. The other thing to consider is the interest rate. Do you want to go for a fixed interest rate or a variable interest rate loan? The last decision, or the fourth one, is the loan's maturity. Do you want to go for a shorter one whereby you quickly pay and then you forget about it, or you want to go for a longer term loan? It actually depends on so many factors, of course. So as the borrower, you would need to consider this as well. Shorter term loans means that you'll be paying lower interest rates and larger monthly payments. It means that the instrumental payment will be larger, but then you'll be paying lower interest rates, and even the duration will be shorter. The longer term loan means that smaller monthly payments will be made and your interest rates will be higher. So all these are options that you should consider carefully before deciding on what kind of loan you want to take. All right, so whether short term or long term, it depends on what you want to use the loan for and how soon you think you can recover from paying it, and a lot of other factors. So these are just the four major ones, or the decisions that need to be paid attention to. Now, like I mentioned earlier, that this kind of loans are different. This consumer and student loans are different from the other credits that are available out there. You should also, because they are detailed and they are in a contract form, so everything in the contract, you should try as much as possible to understand. You should try as much as read all the clauses. In fact, if you need the help or assistance of a professional, you don't shy away from that. Please seek professional advice, all right, and assistance before you go for any loan, so you don't put yourself into trouble. So for any loan contract, there are different terms and terminologies, all right. So this 4 is what we're going to focus on in today's class. The first is the insurance agreement clause. And with this clause, with this insurance agreement clause, we are required to purchase a credit life insurance. All right, that's another cost, another extra cost. Another extra cost. So you are required to purchase insurance, a life insurance, so as to pay off the loan in the event of your death. All right, if it's in the event of your death, we will now use that to pay off the loan. It's actually an additional cost, and at the end of the day, it's the lender, if you look at it very well, it's the lender that is going to benefit majorly from it, because it's like the cost is not even double. You'll be paying for the loan and you'll still be paying for the credit life insurance. Then the second one is the acceleration clause. Another one you should know is the acceleration clause, and this states that if you miss the payment, then the entire loan becomes due immediately. They don't want you to default at all. So at all costs, you have to always ensure that you pay as at when the loan is due for payment. So once you fail, then automatically the loan becomes due. And if you can't pay off the entire loan, then your collateral will be in for it. Your collateral will have to be repossessed or seized, and it will be sold so as to pay off your balance due. And even in the event that it doesn't cover it, then you'll still be indebted to the creditor. All right, you'll still be indebted to the lender. So that's it's going to accelerate everything. If the loan is supposed to end in maybe in 2 years' time and you default in maybe the 3rd month, for example, then automatically, immediately the loan becomes due. All right, it becomes due, and then something will be done about it. The next one is the deficiency payment clause, and this clause states that if you default on a secured loan, not only can the lender repossess whatever is secured, but if the sale of that asset doesn't cover what you owe, then this can be billed. You can still be billed for the difference. All right, it means that once you fail, once you default in paying your loan, a loan that is secured, that means a loan that you have a collateral, then this particular collateral will be seized from you. It's no longer yours. It now becomes that of the lender. So the lender can sell it to cover up for your bill, and even if that does not suffice, then you will still be charged, or you are expected to pay the remaining. The last one is the recourse clause, and this defines what actions the lender can take, all right, in order to claim money from you in case you default. It's going to identify, it's going to state whatever rights that the contract, or maybe between you and the lender, whatever you've agreed that the lender can do, all right, what they can do to claim money from you. So these are the terminologies or the terms of any loan that are very important. So this is an example of an installment purchase contract. So you have to note all the terms and conditions that surround. You have to really read the terms and conditions very well before signing the contract, before signing any contract at all, be it loan or any other type of contract. Special types of consumer loans. Home equity loan or second mortgage. We are now moving to the types of the special ones among the types of the consumer loans. These are secured loans using equity in home as a collateral, right? You use equity in your home as a collateral. One of the advantages is that interest is tax deductible. The interest is tax deductible, meaning that the interest you are paying on the loan will not be taxed. Then there is lower interest than other consumer loan when it comes to home equity. And one of the disadvantages is the fact that it puts your home at risk, because this is your collateral. This is what you'll be using to secure the loan. It puts the home at risk. If anything happens, if you default, then your property is going for it. And then it also limits your future financing flexibility. You may not be that financially flexible in future, because it's like you are spending your future income or money at present. We also have the automobile loan. These are majorly secured loans specifically for purchasing an automobile, right? As the name implies, you want to get a car, you want to get, automobiles generally. So they usually range between 24 to 48 months. They can also extend from 5 to 6 years. The risks are low to the lender because of the collateral. The risk is low to the lender. Some of us may be familiar with this, especially those who are working and have maybe been involved in this kind of loan, either the home or housing or the automobile loan. They are very common among workers very well. Moving on to the cost and early payment of consumer loan, we want to discuss about the APR, that's the annual percentage rate. We've actually discussed it in, I think, about 2 of our previous classes, so this shouldn't be a problem. It's referred to annual percentage rates, and it's just the simple percentage cost of all finance charges over the life of the loan, all right, on annual basis. Like the name implies, it is annual percentage rate. So it's actually the simple percentage cost of all the finance charges over the life of the loan. And it's calculated by getting or deriving the average annual finance charges and dividing it by the average loan balance outstanding. Truth in Lending Act requires all customer or consumer loan agreements to disclose the APR, the annual percentage rate, in bold print. So before you even think about the loan, you need to find out the information about the annual percentage rates, because you will be using this to calculate your the cost of your loan. Cost of single payment loan. Don't forget that we mentioned that the single payment loan are those that you just pay off immediately. All right, you pay off at once. Loan disclosure statement gives APR and finance charges of loan. It says the interest calculation, and this is just using the simple interest method. So by now most of you should be familiar with how to calculate the simple interest method. That's the principal multiplied by the interest rates multiplied by the time. Apart from this simple interest method, we can also use the discount method. And for the discount method, the interest is subtracted from the loan amount that is received. All right, the loan amount that is received for a particular period, then the interest will be subtracted from it. If it's the simple interest, then you have to multiply the principal by the time by the rate of interest. So here is the loan disclosure statement. All this information are vital, and they have to be included in the contract. Payday loan, a dangerous kind of single payment loan. That's payday, of course, is the day you have to pay back the loan. So it's usually $100 to maybe $500 loan till next payday. Post-dated check with fee and principal left with payday lender. They are usually due in 1 to 2 weeks, and they're annualized interest rates up to 400%. These are payday loans where you loans that you get and then you pay back maybe the next payday, right? The next day that you're going to receive salary or your next pay. So this they are post-dated check with fee and the principal are left with the payday lender. So these are payday loans by numbers. $15 per $100 borrowed. Median fees on a typical 14-day loan. This is the amount. The 350 is the median size of a payday loan. 391%, that's the annual percentage rate, that's the APR released on typical 15 per $100. And we also have that of 199 days, which is the median number of days borrowers are indebted annually, as well as the $458 median. So this is from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Next is the cost of installment loan. Every loan has its own cost, all right? For the installment loan now, what is the cost? How do you calculate, or how do you calculate the cost of the installment and payment? This is the repayment of both the interest and the principal, and it occurs at regular intervals, especially monthly, all right? Most likely it's monthly, but you are going to pay both the principal as well as the interest. The payment level are set so loan expires at a present date. You already know when you start making the payment for the loan, and you know when the date is going to end. It is spread over time, unlike the one-off kind of payment that you pay everything at once. So for this one, unlike the single payment or the balloon kind of loan, the instrumental payment, you are going to pay it over time, but then you are going to pay both the principal and as well as the interest over time. So you can use either simple interest or add-on method to determine what the payment will be. All right, note that we can use both the simple interest or the add-on method. So here is the monthly installment loan tables for a $1,000 loan with interest payments compound monthly. All right, for example, now determine the monthly payment on a 12-month 14% installment loan for $5,000. The first step is for you to look at the intersection of the 14% rule. I think we did something similar in the last class too. And the 12-month column. So we find the monthly payment on a similar $1,000 installment pay, which is $89.79. All right, so you look at your row for 14%, which is this, and then the intersection, since the payment is at 12 months, you look at the row for 14% at that loan maturity of 12 months. All right, this is $89.79. If it were to be loan maturity of 18 months, then this will be the amount that will be paid. All right, the second step is to determine the monthly payment on the 5,000 loan. We need only multiply this by 5 because this loan is for $5,000 rather than $1,000. All right, so for you to be able to determine this, then we only need to multiply this by 5. All right, since this is for 1,000 USD, so we will multiply this by 5 for you to be able to get the value for that of 5,000. So here is another illustration of a 12-month installment loan for 5,000 at 14%. So this is the starting balance, 5,000. This is the amount you pay monthly. This is the interest payment. Here is the principal payment, and here is the ending balance for each month. If you are paying over 12 months, this is the amount you pay for every month, and this is the amount of interest you'll be paying. Calculating the APR for an add-on loan. This is the formula where N is the number of payments in a year, N is the number of payments over the life of the loan. All right, that's the duration for the loan payment. F is the total finance charge, while P is the principal or the amounts that you actually borrowed. So for you to calculate the APR, you multiply M by 95N plus 9 multiplied by F. All these alphabets have been defined here, so you only need to fix in the values in the formula and then calculate to get the answer. Thus, the APR on this 12 months 14% add-on loan is 24.91%. So that's how to calculate the APR for an add-on loan. Early payment of add-on loan. If installment loan is repaid early, then you determine the amount of principal still owed. To determine it, most common method for add-on loan is row 78 of some of the years and digits. For this, I think has been taught in the last session. Row 78 determines what proportion of each payment goes towards the principal, and there is always a prepayment penalty should in case there is any failure. So I'm going to send or attach a video to the portal for you to see how the rule 78 also, is also used to determine or calculate the proportion of each payment that goes towards the principal. So here is the early payoff of an add-on loan, or you may also refer to your book, the soft copy of the book that has been attached to the portal. So all these are detailed there so that the video will not be too lengthy. Getting the best rate on your consumer loan. How do you try to get the best rate on your consumer loan? A number of factors need to be considered. First is inexpensive sources. You need to try and search for sources that will not be too expensive for you. I mean the loan sources, all right? It could be maybe from family, home equity loan, cash value life insurance loan, and so on and so forth. Try as much as possible to work on the sources first so that you'll be getting loan from the inexpensive sources rather than those that are very expensive, because the loan also has a cost, which is the interest you'll be paying on it. More expensive sources include those of credit union, savings and loans, and also commercial bank. All these financial or finance houses, they have kind of more expensive loans. The most expensive sources include retail stores, finance companies, and small loan companies. So you need to understand all these sources very well for you to be able to decide which among them you want to get your loan from. So what are the keys to getting the best rates? One of them is the strong credit rating. All right. The second one is relatively risk-free to the lender, the ones that are relatively risk-free. They use variable rate loan, short-term loan, short loan term, collateral, as well as large down payment. This is what is required when you actually get a loan. These are the advantages of the risk-free kind of loan to the lender. All these are actually in favor of the lender now, so you need to consider them. They use variable rate loan, and even short-term, short loan term, collateral. The use of short loan term means that the term within which you will be expected to pay, or the period within which you will be expected to pay the loan back, will be short. So which is still quite fine on the part of the lender, even though the borrower might be taking a huge risk or might be at disadvantage. Of course, the collateral is there. You have the collateral, so if you default, then anything can happen to your collateral. It can be seized, can be withdrawn from you and sold to cover up the costs. And even if that can't even suffice, then you'll still be indebted to the lender. And lastly, there is a large down payment. There are some that you require a large down payment before the loan can be offered or granted. Should you borrow or pay cash? This is another decision, all right? And in order for you to decide or know what to do, you should also always keep in mind that debt is very, very expensive. It's very expensive at times to be indebted, because as much as you are trying or striving to pay back that very debt, you will still be running again to pay the interest. Another thing you should note is that you shouldn't borrow. It's not good to borrow to spend. All right, it's better when you want to use it for acquiring maybe properties or so, or you want to use it for investment, all right, or perhaps maybe educational purpose, maybe you want to go for education loan or something like that. But never try to borrow in order to spend, because it's just like you are spending your future income at the present. Use cash rather than credit, all right, use cash rather than credit. If benefits outweigh the costs, then borrowing may make sense. If the benefits outweighs the cost, if you've considered all the benefits from taking the credit or loan very well, and you think that okay, these advantages outweighs the disadvantages, then that is when borrowing can only make sense. How do you control your use of debt? All right, how do you control your use of debt? One of the ways is to determine how much debt you can comfortably handle. Don't chew more than you can swallow. Don't do more than you can do. I mean, you don't do more than your income can absorb. So you should determine how much debt that you can comfortably handle given your own income. You know how much you earn, so you know that if you go for that particular loan, you know how much of your income will be channeled to the repayment of that loan. So you really have to consider that. Debt level comfort and need changes at different stages of the financial life cycle. You should also know your debt level comfort, and maybe there will be need for changes in your lifestyle at different stages. With age, debt proportion of income tends to decline, because it's expected that while you are more agile, while you are at the youthful age, you would have been able to work and acquire some of those items. Use several measures to control debt commitments. Try as much as possible to combine quite a number of methods. And that takes us to the debt limit ratio, which is the percentage of your take-home pay committed to non-mortgage debt. This is calculated by totaling the monthly non-mortgage debt payment and dividing that by the total monthly take-home pay. All right, you get the non-mortgage debt payments and you divide it by your total take-home pay. Total debt can be divided into consumer debt and mortgage debt. The ratio should be below 15% for you to be able to manage yourself very well, and approximately 20% should avoid those that are maybe approximately 20% should avoid additional debts, as much as if you are paying a debt limit ratio of your, or if your debt limit ratio is as high as 20%, then you should try as much as possible to avoid additional debt, because some people, their lifestyles are funny. They will still be indebted, they will still be servicing the particular loan, and they would have acquired another one before they even finish the repayment of one. They would have engaged themselves in another one. So this is very funny, and one has to be careful about it. Debt resolution rule. This is a control debt obligation, which excludes borrowing for education and home financing. All right, it forces you to repay all outstanding debt obligations after every 4 years. The logic behind it is that consumer credit should be short term. All right, the logic behind the debt resolution rule is that any consumer credit should be short term. So within 4 years or whatever, you are expected to pay all your outstanding according to the debt resolution rule, except for maybe if the loan is used for education purpose or for home financing, because usually home financing takes a longer period of time to repay because of the huge amount that is included, or the huge amount that is involved. How do you control your consumer debt? The first thing is to make sure that it fits in with your goals and budgets. Right? You have a target, you have a budget as well. Apart from your own target, you still need to look at your income. How much are you earning? How much do you think you will be able to spend on your loan repayment, because the whole you can it's not possible for you to use the whole salary or your whole income to pay back loan. You also have to live, you have to eat, you have to do some other things. So you need to determine your budget. How is it going to accommodate the loan? Understand how costly consumer debt is before you go into any consumer debt contract. Borrowing limits future financial flexibility. Of course, you will not be financially flexible in the future, because you would have some of the money that you are supposed to spend in the future would have been used or will be used for the repayment of that particular loan. Clues: you might be in financial trouble. Of course, if your consumer debt is not well controlled, then it could be a signal that you might be in financial trouble in the nearest future, especially those that are reckless with their finances. Here is just a financial danger quiz and checklist for you to be sure that you are financially okay, or you are not financially in danger. So if you answer yes to any of these questions, you might be in financial trouble. Do you have little or no savings? Do you live without budget? Have you ever taken out any payday loan? Do creditors call you about payment? So if the answers to any of this is actually yes, then it might be an indication that you are in financial trouble. What to do if you can't pay your bills? There are different options when you can't pay your bill. You budget so more money comes in. You budget, you try to prepare a budget such that you cut down on some of the expenses so that more money comes in. Another thing is to use self-control in the use of credit. You use self-control. The third one is to go to your creditor, explain the situation, and then maybe you might need to readdress the terms and conditions of the credit or the loan. And another option is to go to a credit counselor who is going to counsel you or advise you on how to go about it if you can't pay your bills. Then borrow inexpensively. That's another option. Don't borrow, you don't take credit or loans that are very expensive. If you are not that buoyant to pay off, or financially buoyant to pay off. Use savings to pay off current debts. Use your savings to pay off your current debt. Use debt consolidation loan. There are times that the consolidation loan will be available, so you can use debt to consolidate. Or the last option is for you to declare yourself bankrupt. All right, and this is the last resort, like I mentioned. It doesn't wipe out on obligations from you anyways, but at times it comes with a relief. All right, the only thing is that maybe for the next few years you may not have access to any credit, because all your documents, all your files and everything will have this bankruptcy bankruptcy status on them. So it means that it's a kind of signal to creditors that you are not credit worthy. Another thing, the most common types of bankruptcy that we have are the wage earners plan, which will be discussed maybe around the chapter 13, and then we have the straight bankruptcy. The wage earner plan must have a regular income if you want to go for this plan, right? That is once you declare yourself bankrupt. The secured debt under this is under 1,149,525 as at 2014. So the secured debt should be under this particular amount for you to be able to declare yourself bankrupt. Or unsecured debt should be under this. Don't forget that we've discussed the differences between the secured debt and unsecured debt. All right, for secured debt there is a collateral. For unsecured debt, a collateral is required. For unsecured debt, there is none. All right. So if you are an individual, for the individual, relief from harassment of bill collectors may be one of the advantages of being bankrupt. All right, you'll be relieved from harassment. Nobody's going to harass you, and then you retain the possession of your assets once you declare, or once you are declared bankrupt. You still retain the possession of the assets. Those are the advantages to the individual borrower or the individual borrower or the debtor. For the creditor or the lender, there is control repayment with court supervision. The court supervises how your repayment is being made. So that's that about the wage earner plan. If you are a wage earner, all right, if you are a wage earner, there's these are the ways in which you can go about it. For the straight bankruptcy, this can eliminate debts and then you begin again. It eliminates the debt and then you begin again. Most debts are wiped out, but not the child support, for example, not the alimony, not the student loan, and not the taxes. So, for example, the student loan will not be wiped out. You are expected to work after graduating from an institution and start payment. Trustee collects, sells all non-exempt property, and then you must complete credit counseling course for the straight bankruptcy. You must complete a credit counseling course. Student loan and paying for college. If you're applying for student loan, how do you go about it and how do you go about payment? You have to understand the consequences of your choice of school and major, because some schools or institutions are more expensive than others. So if you really want to use loan or use student loan to get to acquire your certificate, regardless whether degree or higher degrees, so you need to consider the consequences of your choices of school because of the costs. Then you need to understand the full cost of school and what you can do to borrow less and borrow smarter. At times, borrowing requires you to be smart as well. So you manage your money well while on campus. That's another thing if you are going for student loan. And then you repay your loan without sacrificing your financial goals. Try as much as possible to repay your money without sacrificing your financial goals. So this is a typical example of earnings and unemployment rates by educational attainment according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics as at 2014. Many choices, so many choices, schools and majors. Of course, there are so many choices. Research what your expected salary will be, depending on the kind of maybe degree you want to acquire and the course you want to study. So you do not take on too much debt, all right? At the end of the day, what do you stand to gain? At the end of your degree, what do you want to become? Then how do you want to, what do you intend? What are your expectations in terms of income, all right? And then, you don't, based on that, you don't put yourself under so much pressure by getting or obtaining too much debt. Understand the positive and negative aspects of your school and the major sources, the major choices. So this is another factor that you need to consider when you have so many choices of school. So you consider what your expected salary will be at the end of the day, at the end of your study, how you're going to pay back, and then the positive and negative aspects of your school. Borrowing less and borrowing smarter. We mentioned about borrowing less and smarter just now. So you have to compare your financial aid packages and college costs for you to be able to know, and then apply for federal financial aid first. You don't just quickly rush to private lenders rather, to borrow money. You have to explore. Please try to get if you are getting a student loan, for example, okay, try to get federal financial aid or something. Otherwise, or alternatively, you can look for state and local grants and scholarships. That's another thing that students do in order to, a smarter way of doing it rather than getting themselves involved in loans where they will have to repay for almost maybe a decade after their graduation. Use tax credit and deductions to your advantage. You know that this will not be charged. The tax credit and deductions will be removed from the income that can be taxed. So you can also make use of this advantage. Here are the proportion of students at a 4-year college who borrow. Students who borrow, you can see that they are many than those who do not borrow. So they are more than those who do not borrow. Paying for your college education can be done via the 5 to 9 plan, via the prepaid tuition plan, the college savings plan, as well as the Coverdell Education Savings account, as the ESA. So here are the different savings plan comparison. You need to know who owns it, what can I invest in, what can it be used for, all right? What expenses are covered besides the tuition and fees, and how much can you contribute. So all this should be considered for the savings plan, the prepaid tuition plan, as well as the Coverdell ESA, that's the education savings account. So for the owner of the college savings plan, the contributor is the owner for all the plan, the 3 plan, whether savings or prepaid tuition or the ESA. So what can you invest in? Typically, plan provides several investment options for you if it's the 5 to 9 college savings plan. You can purchase units or credit at participating school if it's the prepaid tuition plan. Meanwhile, for the ESA, there are no restrictions. When can it be used? There is no age limit when it's the in terms of the savings plan. Plan may be set age or grade limits. Plan may set age or grade limit if it's the tuition plan. For example, it could be maybe for ages 25 and above, or maybe for grade limits, all right, and so on and so forth. So you should also consider the expenses that are covered besides the tuition, and then how much you can contribute. Still on the saving plan comparison, you need to look at the federal tax advantages, the state tax advantages, the income phase out, as well as the penalties for other use. So for example, the federal tax advantages for the savings plan is that earnings grow tax deferred and are tax free if used for qualified education, all right? And then for the state tax advantage is the fact that it varies from state to state, all right? It varies from state to state, but some states provide tax deduction for contributions. So these are just things that you need to study on your own before you can decide, all right, whether to go for the savings plans. Federal student loan are also available. Like I mentioned, that at times you need to explore the federal student loan before going to any lender for loan. The Department of Education is your lender. This needs to be understood. The interest is fixed over the life of the loan. If you are paying the loan for a duration of maybe 2 years, the interest is also fixed for that period. We have the Federal Perkins Loan Program, the direct subsidized loans, the direct unsubsidized loan, the direct plus loan, as well as the direct consolidation loan. So all these are available. Available federal student loans in the US. Private loan provide you with funds after you have exhausted all your federal financial aid. They seems to be the last resort. All right, they are offered by commercial banks and credit union. Their interest rates also vary. Interest rate varies across the private loan, the lenders. The rates are usually higher than the federal student loan rate, and that is why you need to consider the federal student loan rate first. They generally do not offer deferment or forbearance options. There are no option of deferment or forbearance when it comes to private loans. Here are the federal, the comparison between the federal as well as the private student loans. For example, in terms of maybe the benefits for federal loan, the federal student loans are subsidized and they have fixed interest rates. Most students are eligible and repayment terms are flexible. For the private loan, you can borrow larger amounts. If you shop around and have a good credit rating, you may be able to find low interest rates. What about the risk involved? For the federal loan, the amount of money you can borrow is limited, and a portion of your wages and tax refund could be taken by the government if you neglect the repayment responsibility. So in terms of the private loan or lenders, your interest rate and monthly payments could change with a little warning, and you have fewer options for when and how much you repay. So these are some of the factors that you need to consider before deciding whether you want to go for federal loan or private loan. In fact, it's advisable that you go for the federal loans first, except you didn't make a headway or there is no success with that. That is only when you are advised to go to the private lenders. So this is just a continuation of the comparison between the federal versus the private loans. Manage your money responsibly. Manage your money responsibly. This has also been the core of what we've been talking about from the beginning of the semester, since it is personal finance, talking about you and your finances. So if you choose a bank that charges low fees, the banks vary, their charges vary, their terms and conditions vary. So you should study quite a number of banks and then compare them. You should also use direct deposits. Repaying your loan. There are different repayment plans when it comes to repaying your loan. We have the standard, we have the extended, we have the income based, and we have the graduated repayment plan. So all these are different. Another thing is the deferment. All right, you enroll at least half time, unemployed or meet hardship standard, you can postpone the payment for up to 3 years. You can defer the payment for up to 3 years if you find out that maybe if the situation doesn't warrant. For example, maybe the person is unemployed, or somebody who got a student loan to study and at the end of the day he or she is unemployed, then they can apply for this deferment. There is no interest that is accrued on subsidized loan. No interest is accrued on subsidized loan. Forbearance is the delay payment due to illness, financial hardship, or residency requirements. Interest accrued. So all these are ways in which you can repay your loan. You can have a repayment plan or deferment if there is any maybe hardship or something or unforeseen circumstances. And then we also have the forbearance, and this is due to a delay in payment that is due to several factors such as illness and financial hardships. So for this class today, we've discussed consumer loans and how they can be paid in terms of the choices that are available in terms of the single payment, installment loan, secured or unsecured. So all these are the choices that we discussed. Then loan that are finance charges include interest payments, processing fee, credit check fee, and insurance and fees. So all these need to be considered as well before taking your loan. Another thing we learned today is the fact that there are numerous sources of loan. But the key to getting a favorable one is a strong credit rating and reducing the lender's risk. You can control your debt by borrowing when debt fits within your financial planning budget. So that's another core point that we've addressed today. Then we should understand that the role your school play, all right, in the student loan debt. Try to understand the loan. I mean, we've mentioned that your school plays a major role by giving maybe some scholarship and everything. So you need to explore that before deciding to take loan. We've also used tax advantage account like the 529 plan and the Coverdell ESC to save for college. You can use federal student loan as your first borrowing alternative before going for private lenders, before going to private lenders. So here are just the summary, the highlight of what we've actually learned today. Hope you've been able to pick one or two things, and hopefully we'll meet again next week. Inshallah, we'll be discussing the next topic. Before then, do take care of yourself and stay safe. Bye bye. Thank you for your audience.